Okay, so this is, as we mentioned last week, we're going to work with the program that you did for homework this week, and we're going to add some features to it today. So you should have open the homework that you did for last week. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to add a font dialog control box. We're going to add a save file dialog control box, which allows you to save a file onto the hard drive. And we're going to add an open file dialog control box, which allows you to open a file from your desktop or from your computer, from your hard drive. Okay? So here's the first one, and here's what it's supposed to do. Okay, so it should look like this. So when you run it, you have a font button here, and you type something here. And then you can set the font by clicking this button and change the font to something like that. Okay? So this is what it's supposed to do. All right? So let's take a look at the code that we need to get this to work. So first of all, you want to add what's called a font dialog control to your form, and you just do that by looking under the dialogs list and dragging this onto your form. It will appear down here. It won't be visible on the form, but it will appear down below the form. So first of all, go ahead and do that. So drag the font dialog control on and drag a button called font, or name it, have it display font, and it will be called BTN font. So now click on this font button here, and that will open up this font handler, event handler, this event handler, okay? And you can see that it's called BTN font, click. So it's handling the click event. Okay? Now, here's a question for points. What is status text? What is status text? Does anybody know what that is?
The status string.
It's this, what did you say? It's
string. String value.
String value? What's a string value?
No, it's a string.
It's a string.
That was assigned to the status string text property.
Okay, right. That's right. And what kind of thing is status text?
Any ready to change to the default property.
Right. I'm sorry, say that again?
The one that you have and what on the program will change to the default property to show what are you handling at the moment.
Right. Okay, you can get points for that. But my question really is, what kind of object is it? You know that?
Not sure.
Anybody else? Okay, well, if you go back in the code, you'll see that it's a property that we created. Okay, it's a property, but remember that properties are usually, like I call them, wrappers for something else. So this wraps what the first answer was. This wraps the SSP status.text property. So it wraps that. And this was a property that we created. Okay. All right, let's go on. Okay, so what's going to happen when we click this font button, well, the first thing is that status text is going to be set to setting font properties. Okay, so that means down here in the status bar, we're going to see something like that. Okay, what's next? The next thing is that the font dialog 1.showColor equals true. Okay, so that means that you can, that also means that you can set the color as well. But we actually have to check that. Okay, the next thing is if font dialog 1, so that's the font dialog box that we just added, dot show dialog equals dialog result dot OK. Basically, this is just means OK. So this just means if they've clicked the OK button, then no, sorry. If this is OK, then what are we going to do? Yeah, if they click the OK button, then what are we going to do? So what is this here? Okay, on the left side, what do we have? So for some points, what is being set on the left side of the equal sign?
Style.
Say that again?
Shows your font style.
Shows my font.
It changes your font style.
Right. Okay, so in other words, what's being set here is what? The text box font property, right? Okay, good. And what about, what's the next line? What is that going to set? Yes?
Basically same to font, but the color of the.
Right. Okay, now just to make it a little harder, where are we going to get the color from? In other words, what's the right side of that equation? Or that assignment, I should say. What's the right, same person, what's the right side of that assignment? No? Same person? What's the right side of this assignment over here? What is this thing here? This is this, right?
Yeah.
This is what we just added, right?
Yeah.
And then it's the color property of that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, does everyone understand what's going to happen in this when we click the font button and then we click OK? So this only happens after we click OK. All right, so let's so add this into your code and see that it works. So just as a test, okay, can we have some? So just as a test, when you put this like that, so you comment it out, what's the effect in the program? Yeah.
When you press the font, it shows the different types of
Options?
yes, options, but there is no color at the bottom.
Okay. So let's see. So she said if I do this, and do that, there's no box for changing the color. Okay? Okay. Right? Okay, good. So she should get the ones. Okay, good. So, alright. So let's read what he says about what we just did. So he says add the code. First add a click event handler for BTN font. So we did that. Next add the code below to the font BTN font click handler. So first we want to add status text equals this. And we want to do this stuff here. And basically we already discussed that. So what does he say about it? Here we update our status strip, which was a property that we created, to setting font properties. So we just set that text. using the status text property. B, we set the font dialog 1's properties to show all color selection. To allow color selection. Okay, and the next, we show our font dialog. Okay, so that's what we do here. So if this is okay, then we're going to show the dialog box. And, sorry, that's what we do. And then the user will make the selections and press the dialog button. These selections become the properties of the font dialog 1. When the user presses OK or cancel, a dialog result enumeration value is returned to us. That's what he means by this OK here. That's an enumeration. If the result was OK, we pass the user's choices for font and colors to the TXT edit box. And we also update the status strip once more to font properties set. Okay? Everyone understand? Okay. Let's go on to the next slide. Here's the example. Okay, next we want to allow someone to save our save the data in the text editor. So this is called files input and output. Okay, files I/O. Okay, so we want to do that, and we're going to use the same file dialog control, and we're also going to need something called the stream writer. Okay, and then when we want to open a file, we're going to have to use the open file dialog control, and that uses what's something called a stream reader. Okay, so we're going to need to do all of that. Okay. So this is the kind of dialog box that we want to use. Okay, the save file dialog box supports user user information-based saving to a file user interface using the standard APIs which are provided by Windows for developers. Here, this should be API, not APU. API means Application Programming Interface. As a result, an application programming interface just means like a bunch of libraries that allow us to use to access the program. Okay, as a result, we see identical dialogues from other applications. In other words, you often see this kind of dialog box when you're using MS Word or when you're using Excel. However, .NET provides it in a convenient VB form so that we don't have to worry about specific details of the API. Okay, the save file dialog can be used in your application as a VBNet class by declaring an instance in code and setting its properties in code, or as a control, as a VBNet control, by dragging the control from the toolbox and setting its properties in the code or in the properties window. Either way, it will have the same methods, properties, and events, and will be displayed as shown above by invoking the show dialog method. Okay, so let's just go on and do it. So he says various save file dialog methods are available for us to use. One is called dispose, which we're not going to use, but that releases the current dialog box for trash collection. So basically, it releases it from memory so that it saves memory basically. Resets all the properties of the OK, and show dialog. That's the one we're going to use. That's the method we're going to use, and that shows the dialog box. Example is save file dialog 1. That's going to be the name of our save file dialog box dot show dialog. So we're going to use that method. Okay, that save file dialog returns a result of OK or cancel. Okay, here we will be using the show dialog method. Okay, and we have to do something else. We have to use what's called the stream writer class. Okay, and that does all the work of writing all of the data to a file. So that dialog box doesn't really do any of the work. It's just the interface. Okay, that doesn't really do any of the work. It's just the interface that the user sees. So we have to use also, this is kind of confusing, we have to use also this stream writer class as well. Okay? All right, so let's see how that works. Okay, so go ahead and do this and see if it works. So let me say that again. So the save file dialog 1 control has a lot of different properties, which you can see in the properties inspector window. And some of the properties are the default ext, the file name, the filter. All of these actually are properties of this control. So normally if you wanted to set the default ext property equal to txt, how would you write it? You'd have to say save file dialog 1 dot default ext equals txt, right? That's the normal way to do it. And then if you wanted to set the file name, you'd have to write what? Save file dialog 1 dot file name equals str file name, right? And then to set the filter property, you'd have to say, right, save file dialog 1 dot filter equals this, and so on, right? That's how you'd have to set all the properties. So all this does is it enables you not to have to keep typing save file dialog 1 repeatedly over and over again. It says with this dot default dot, so it's just a short way, so you don't have to keep writing this thing here, 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 and here. You just have to write it up here, and then just do dot, and then set those properties, and then say end with at the end. Okay, so it's just a shorthand or shortcut. Okay? Okay, now we don't know exactly what all this means, right? But even if you try it, it's not going to work. Does it work yet? I mean, I think it brings up the dialog box, right? But it doesn't save anything when you click OK, right? Nothing, right? Doesn't work. Because, like I said, this dialog box doesn't have the code to write a file to disk. It just shows the dialog box itself. So that's all we've done so far is show the dialog box, but we haven't figured out a way to actually write anything. Okay, so when we click save, nothing happens, right? Even though you can bring up this dialog box, nothing happens when you click save. Okay, so, and again, we didn't explain all the details of this either, but anyway, it's still nothing, it's not going to work. So you still have to do this code here. And this is going to use this stream writer. There's also a stream reader, but that's for reading a file. Right? This is going to use the stream writer class. Okay, so this is going to be the engine that does all the work for us of saving the file to, or writing the file to the hard drive. Okay, so you're going to have to use this. And so first of all, type this and then let's figure out what it means. What kind of object is my writer? Can anybody answer that intelligently? What kind of object or data type is my writer? Super easy. Super easy, except that you're not familiar with this type of object. if it was Boolean, it would say dim my writer as Boolean, right? And it would be a Boolean, right? So it's pretty easy, but it's except that you're not familiar with this. But what kind of object is it? Another guess? What? Text. That's a good guess, but not right. String? No. Okay, maybe it's not as easy as I thought. It's a stream writer object. Now you say, well, what is that? Right? Stream writer object. We've never heard of that. That's why it wasn't easy, because we haven't heard of it. But you know that it must be of type stream writer because it says as stream writer. So we've seen as Boolean, as string, as decimal, as integer, and even as customer. We've seen as customer. We build our own data type, and then we've had something as customer, right? So this is somebody else built another data type called a stream writer, okay? And then we're creating my writer as that type. Now we also saw this when we talked about for an array. We said my writer or something as an array, okay? So we saw this done in various cases in the past. Okay, so anyway, once more, even though nobody got the points for that, what kind of object is my writer? It's a stream writer object. Okay, now in object-oriented programming, which we only briefly talked about, objects, now we have one called my writer. Okay, my writer. Okay, objects have properties, like a color property, or they have lots of different properties. Okay, but not only do they have properties, but they also have methods. Okay, so that's something we didn't talk too much about. But we did talk about when we had an array, my array, I think we talked about the length property, Lengta. That was a property, but we also talked about some other, I think it was get something or another, was a method for my array also. So anyway, objects, my array is an object type, my writer is a different one. They have properties, but they also have methods. So if this was a method, it's not, but if this was a method, there would be two little brackets in front of, to the right. Okay? To indicate that it was a method or a function or a subroutine. Okay? So anyway, objects sometimes have properties and sometimes they have methods. So the name of the object that we're creating right here is called my writer. And it might, because, and I don't know, or maybe we don't know, what properties it has, because we're not familiar with the stream writer type object. We're not familiar with that. Okay, so we don't know what the properties and the methods are for that. But you can see some of the properties that it has in the next few lines. In other words, here and here. In the next two lines, you can see some of the methods that it has. So here's another question for points. So can I get the TAs again? TAs? Can somebody tell me one of the methods of the stream writer, I'm going to say stream writer class, or of the stream writer type? Can somebody give me a method associated with the stream writer, let me say it the right way, the stream writer class? Okay, or let me say it the wrong way, the stream writer type. Can anybody give me a method associated with that? Okay, so to know that, you first should recognize that my writer is an example of a stream writer. So you can look based on that. What? Okay, can you give her points? And what did she say? What did you say? She said right. right, how does she know that the StreamWriter class has a write method? How does she know that? Because MyWriter is an example of the StreamWriter class, and MyWriter has a write method right there, right? Okay, so MyWriter has a write method. Okay, and MyWriter, and one more, just to send now a giveaway point. Yes, go ahead.
Flow.
It also has a close method, right? That's right. Okay, good. So we see that once we create an instance, that's the language they use. We say we create an instance of this class. So and the class again is the StreamWriter class, or the StreamWriter data type, if you like that word instead, the StreamWriter data type. Once we create an instance of that StreamWriter data type or StreamWriter class, which happens to be called MyWriter, then we can use the methods that the StreamWriter class has with MyWriter. So that's what we're doing here. MyWriter.write, MyWriter.close. Okay? So this is the core of object-oriented programming. The core is that you have a class, which is kind of like a data type, and you create an instance of it, and then you have methods and properties for that instance that you can use. Okay? So that's the basic understanding of what we're doing here. Okay? So let's read it a little bit more. So we go here. Dim MyWriter as StreamWriter equals new StreamWriter, open bracket, and all this. So this is also necessary to create. Remember we talked about the difference between declaring and creating. So declaring is just sort of saying hello, but creating is actually making some space in the memory for this. Okay? So what we're doing is first we're declaring it, and then this new actually is creating it, and that's kind of actually making space for it in memory. So you have to do this whole line here, from here to here, to get it to actually exist. And then you can refer to it, and you can use its write method and its close method. Okay? So that's the basic understanding of this. And now you should try it and make sure that it works. So go ahead and try to make sure that it works.